Hi, I'm Peggy Farren, and we are live with the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. Welcome to episode 117. We're going to talk about sports photography today with photojournalist Amanda Inscore. But of course, first, I just want to remind you to sign up for one of our freebies on the understandphotography.com site. We've got what do you need to know as a photographer? To become a really good photographer, there are certain things you must know. So that's is it a download or a video? I already forgot. What kind of camera do I buy? But our latest thing is 30 unique and practical gifts for photographers, which is good timing for that. So download that PDF, and then you'll automatically be put on our mailing list. We send out a newsletter once a month that has photography tips and things that are going on within Understand Photography. So that's at understandphotography.com. So my guest today is photojournalist Amanda Inscore. Amanda has a journalism degree from the University of North Carolina, and she's worked at the News Press in Fort Myers since 2003. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Now, you do more than just sports photography, though, right?
Everything.
You do everything. They send you out on all kinds of stuff, like murders and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, news, and I do the covers for Southwest Florida Parent and Child magazine.
Oh, do you do that? I do the covers for the Neapolitan Family magazine. I love that job.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so fun to do the little kids and.
Yeah, unless they give you a 2-year-old and a puppy, that's hard.
Okay, I can top it. I've been doing Neapolitan Family for, I don't know, 15 years or something like that.
Oh, I bet you can then.
And how about triplet 8-month-olds?
Oh, yeah. I did triplets, too, for one. They weren't mobile yet, though. They were probably like 3 months old. So they weren't, crawling away.
And then when they sold the magazine, the new owners came up with an idea. Thank God that didn't go through. They thought, oh, wouldn't it be cute to have a 2-year-old swimming underwater and smiling at the camera? Mm-hmm. And somehow that didn't happen. Thanks be to God.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever they're like, oh, let's do a 2-year-old and a puppy again. I'm like, oh. So yeah, I do everything. News, sports, families, yeah, everything.
Anything the newspaper needs.
Studio, yeah.
And you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
Wow. Was this your first job out of college?
Second.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, I worked at a newspaper in Central Florida for about 2.5 years right out of college.
Okay.
And then
But I would imagine Fort Myers is about the size where you, as a photojournalist, you don't get too pigeonholed into one thing, so you can get your skills, keep your skills up in all different types of
There's
photography.
only 5 of us on staff right now, so you have to be open to anything.
But that's good.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
I don't get bored.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's something new every day and fun. I meet all kinds of interesting people. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk about sports photography today. So how is sports photography different from other types of journalism photography?
Well, it's a little bit different, but the main things are kind of the same. I mean, you have to look for good moments. You have to look for good faces. You want to have knowledge of what you're photographing. You have to think quickly on your feet. So it's just like other journalism assignments, but
it sometimes moves faster.
It moves faster a lot of the time, yeah. And you have to know the sport.
So did you learn the sports as you were going, or
yeah,
were you always kind of
I had a decent knowledge of sports from growing up. Yeah, I was a gymnast, so I don't get to photograph gymnastics a lot, but when I do, I get excited about it.
My teenage intern is a gymnast.
Yeah.
And they're so different from back when I was a gymnast. When I was a teenager, where everybody was real skinny. Now that everybody's just power. She's like all muscle.
Yeah.
I think she weighs like 20 pounds more than I do, and she's shorter than I am, but it's all
can't
muscle.
Tell. Yeah.
She is really...
Deceptively strong, yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
All right, so let's say somebody wants to get into sports photography in general. Do you have specific gear that you recommend?
Well, I shoot Canon gear, top of the line.
Top of the line.
Top of the line. Yeah, the newspaper buys my gear, so I don't have to
That's nice.
do that, which is nice. I used to shoot with a 7D Canon 7D for a long time, 6 or 7 years. And then they got us the 1DX Mark II and the 5D Mark III.
And can you see a
And-
real difference?
Oh, huge.
Oh, huge. And the
difference.
7D was made
This-
for sports
Yeah,
photography.
the 7D was great. I just didn't know how much better it could be.
What's better?
The focus speed, like you can go really high on the ISO if you need to. Whereas with the 7D, it would really start to break apart if you went over, 1600 or 30. I would have to go to 3200
for the original
a lot,
7D. I
but
think the
yeah.
7D Mark II is better.
It probably is better.
But
'cause
yeah,
it's
the
newer,
original
but-
one is pretty old though.
But I went from the Nikon D2H to the 7D, and that was a huge jump.
Okay.
But now, I mean, the 1DX Mark II is just
it's amazing. It's heavy
it's
though,
amazing.
right?
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Keeps your
muscles.
arms in shape.
And what about the lenses? Now let me ask you. No, first tell me your lenses.
Well, I have a 70 to 200 2.8. That's good for a lot of stuff, especially basketball, and then they got us 100 to 400. It's like a 4.556, and that's really good for golf,
It's got a
tennis. You can go long, especially during the day. I have shot high school football with it, and just bumped the ISO way up, and it works really well. I like it because we do have a 400 2.8 and a 600 f4, but they're big,
Holy
and
cow, I can't even imagine.
you can
how
get
much
bruises
do
in
they
your shoulder
weigh.
from lugging that thing on your monopod
Uh-huh.
for a whole game or a whole day on the golf course. Wow. So the 100 to 400 is really nice.
Now, is that the new one that twists
Yeah,
to zoom?
Yeah, it
'Cause
twists
I
and
had
zoom
the
and
old
it
one that
telescopes
had.
out. You don't push. It's not a push-pull, but it twists.
I had the
but-
old one like
yeah.
that, and I could never ever get used to it, and I finally got rid of it because I just
Yeah.
didn't like it because of that.
Yeah.
So I know they changed it though because people like me didn't like it.
Yeah. So it's nice. I like it.
That's awesome. Now, do you think it makes a really big difference to have good lenses versus, like, what if I got a 70 to 200 f4? What if I got a 70 to 200 off-brand? Or what if my 70 to 200 costs $200?
I would prefer better lenses to a better camera.
Yeah.
I usually tell people to upgrade their lenses first and then work on upgrading the camera, especially if you have, the newer consumer grade cameras are really good.
Yeah,
so
the cameras. I say that same thing all the time.
Yeah.
Because I get calls all the time. I've got a, they got a fairly recent camera, and they'll say, I need a new camera. I'm like, no, you need new lenses.
Yes. Yeah.
So what would be the biggest difference between a cheap lens and a good lens?
The glass is so much better. The clarity, the focus. It'll focus really fast for
Yeah.
you.
Plus, some of the cheaper ones, they start falling apart as you zoom in too much.
Yeah.
And you can actually see it while you're looking at it. You're like, it doesn't even look clear.
Yeah.
It says it'll zoom to
yeah.
300, but
You don't want to.
you never do because it starts
I had a
falling apart.
Sigma 70 to 200 2.8 in college, and the thing literally just fell apart.
Yeah, Sigma has improved though a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure they
over
have.
the
I haven't
years,
shot
but-
with an off-brand lens probably since college, and that's been 18 years or so. So it's been a while. I could be just
Yeah,
being a
but-
snob about
No,
that, but
no,
I
but-
prefer the Canon or Nikon.
to go with it.
To go
whatever
with
you
it,
bought.
yeah.
Now, do you use a tripod at all?
No.
Never.
Not usually. I do every once, like if I'm photographing birds or something, I will with the long lenses.
Do you have a gimbal head for the birds, or?
I don't.
No, I don't either. I've never been that interested in photographing birds, but I think maybe if I would try it, maybe I would be interested,
Yeah, I don't have a lot of patience for it.
That's
You
what
met
I'm
Andrew
worried
West. He has supreme patience, and he knows all the birds, and he gets all the best bird shots. I just get lucky every once in a while.
Yeah.
But he really goes out and seeks it.
I don't mind if they're just sitting there, but the birds in flight just doesn't, that seems too hard for me.
Yeah.
I haven't really tried. I think you really have to practice with that one. I was
You do.
surprised because Audubon of the Western Everglades asked us to share some pictures, and they said, oh, we'll put your link on their website. I said, okay, and I thought, oh, well, I'll be calling Joe, right, because he's the one who does all the bird photography, but I was surprised how many bird pictures I had, just mostly because there's everywhere we live. We're so lucky
Yeah.
to be here with these cool birds. All right, now are you shooting in manual mode, aperture priority, shutter priority?
I shoot a combination of manual and aperture priority. Most of the time when I'm doing sports, I'm manual though, because the light is consistent.
Okay.
For the most part. If high school football, it's night. It's going to be like that the whole game.
So you kind of set your settings and don't move them,
yeah,
don't
set
change
it
them
and
that
forget
often?
it.
Set them and
Basically.
forget it.
Yeah.
Set it and forget it. I like that.
And then basketball, you're in the gym. It's going to be the same light.
So-
Volleyball, stuff like that.
So why not use an automatic setting then?
Well,
Like aperture priority or
because
shutter?
it will jump around based on what you're focusing on, and you want to keep the settings consistent because generally it's going to work out better if you're on manual
Okay.
and consistent light. Yeah.
What about,
And now you can look at the back of your camera and see like, oh, that's a little dark. Let me change it a little bit. But
now why would you shoot an aperture priority over shutter priority for sports? Wouldn't the shutter speed be more important than the aperture?
yeah, generally it is. And I used to shoot shutter priority in sports sometimes, but like I said, most of the time I'm
You're in manual anyway, so that's not even a good
And
point.
if it's you know, in bright sun in the daytime, like at golf, and you're on aperture priority, your shutter's always
Gonna be
be
fast.
fast. You know, you have to be mindful of it for sure.
Yeah,
but-
yeah. Well, that's the biggest problem that we have with people who come through our classes. Because they don't learn to shoot in the manual mode in the first place, they don't really understand the relationship between the shutter speed and the aperture, and
Yeah.
they have soft pictures, and they don't really understand it's because you're shooting an aperture priority and you're not paying attention to your shutter speed.
Yeah.
It's okay to shoot an aperture priority, but like you said, you have to be
You have
mindful
to
of the
be-
shutter
yeah,
speed.
you have to really
so.
pay attention. You have to be at least on 1,000th of a second. And if you're inside, you can get away with 500th or 640, something like that. But yeah,
But
you
you have
want
to pay attention.
You have to pay attention. Yeah. That's.
Now, do you shoot in burst mode or continuous drive mode, or
Yeah, I
do you-
always leave my camera.
just
on
leave it in
continue.
there?
Yeah, it's always.
Now, do you use flash? Because you can't really use flash in continuous drive mode, right?
I think you can.
Well, you
It's
can.
been
but
a
the-
while since I've used my flash.
You can, but what will happen
It
is
doesn't
the flash will
flash
only go
every
off
time.
one time.
Yeah, it doesn't flash every time.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, but we used to back in my Nikon D2H days. You could not go above 1600, or it would really look terrible. So high school football, you had to use flash, and sometimes high school basketball, the gyms were just so poorly lit that you had to use flash.
No kidding. High school
Yeah.
football outside with those bright lights, and how did the flash even reach down onto the?
Oh, your flash can be pretty
well, I guess
powerful.
at night it goes
doesn't
farther
look
too.
great. I don't recommend it, but you know, for a newspaper, you have to do it. You have to get a
Wow.
photo. So,
So,
but now with you
you
can put
just
your ISO up
put
really
your
high,
ISO
and
up.
you'll be fine.
Okay.
And they've made the lights better too. Like at FGCU, the gym, the light, they have the LED lights now, and they're amazing.
Yeah, and
It's not those old halogen round gym lights anymore, and a lot of the high school gyms are getting them too. So.
No, so is it a little brighter? Is that what you're
It's
saying?
brighter.
It's brighter,
And
it-
more
What about the
even
color
light.
balance? Is the
And the-
color still bizarro like it used to be?
It's
or
way better.
It's
way
still
better.
It's better. Do you still have to
Yeah.
do a custom white balance, or
I don't. I shoot on auto, and it looks fine.
in RAW? But you're shooting in RAW,
In
right?
RAW,
So
yeah.
that it's easier to fix the white
Yeah.
balance if it's kind of.
But with the old halogen lights, it was really weird.
Yeah.
You'd have to really be mindful of your white balance. But the LEDs they're pretty good on the auto white balance.
No kidding.
Yeah.
See, I haven't. I have hardly shot any sports, but the one, I don't know if it's the only time, but my nephew, when he was in high school, he played lacrosse, and I love my nephew, so I thought, well, I have to go photograph him, and I documented it because it was such a learning curve for me. It wasn't that I had to really learn anything as much as I had to think about every single thing I was doing because I was out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So because I was thinking that through, I thought, oh, I'm going to write a blog article. So if you do a search on understandphotography.com and then space and then lacrosse, you'll find that article. It's really, really helpful if you're learning to shoot in the manual mode. Anyway, okay, so what are the best settings, methods for, I'm going to throw a few things out there, like midday outdoor event in the bright sun. What would that be? That'd be golf?
Yeah, golf,
What
tennis.
else? Tennis, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pickleball. World's
Pickleball,
fastest
yeah.
growing sport. And we have the pickleball what is it called? The championships here in Naples, Florida.
Oh, do we?
Yeah,
I
what is
heard
it
that.
called? It's not called, is it the Open or something? Nobody
Could
in
be.
here plays pickleball. We don't
Yeah.
know.
I've photographed it before, but for a feature story, not for a sports story.
Yeah,
but-
we've got the world championships right here in Naples, Florida.
Yeah.
Aren't you excited to know that?
I might be photographing
You
it.
might
We'll
be.
see.
So what would be the best, what would you do for that situation?
I'd probably have my ISO at 100 or 200, and then just kind of depending on the clouds and the sun, maybe just aperture priority for that until you know kind of what it looks like, and then if there's not a lot of clouds and it's going to stay sunny, then you can go to manual and see, but never on program mode. You don't want to do that because it's going to give you like F8. You want to be on like F28 or F4,
Okay.
or like your lowest.
Because
Or,
you want a shallow depth of field, is
Yeah,
that
you
why?
want a shallow depth of field, yeah.
Okay. So aperture priority or manual with a shallow depth of field.
Yeah.
And then what if it is like cloudy and sunny and cloudy, then you're going to be an aperture priority because it's changing
That would be
so
helpful.
quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. What about evening outdoor events under the lights? That would be the football and the lacrosse.
Football. Yeah, I'm usually at like 640 at 2.8 at 3200.
640 is
roughly.
your shutter speed
Yeah.
and 3200 ISO.
Yeah. And if I can go higher on my shutter speed, I will.
Right, but
depending
it's
on-
night.
Or if it looks like there's a lot of blurry pictures, I'll bump it up to 800 or 1000 for shutter speed and bump up my ISO accordingly.
That was the situation I had for the lacrosse game, and I was surprised at how, it looks so bright. But then when I went to take the pictures, it was like, oh, you know?
Your eye is much better at
Yeah.
adjusting.
It was dark. And I had my 60D, which is not that great. I don't usually go above 1600 with that, with my ISO.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, but I really want to have a fast shutter speed. But then it was like, uh-oh, I can't go that fast. If I had all these decisions. That's why I
Yeah.
documented it, because it was like I had all these decisions to make, and none of them felt like good decisions.
No,
you
there's
know?
always a trade-off.
Yeah, yeah. All right, events held in a gymnasium under fluorescent lights. Is that the lights you were talking about that were so bad in the back in the
Well,
old
those
days?
were like the halogen. Like the
Halogen.
round.
They don't have
they
those
were
anymore
sort of
anywhere?
Orangey.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
right. They had little
really,
cages around them.
Yeah, really gross light. That's the worst.
And you used flash back then.
Yeah.
Did they let you? Because they don't
They
usually
did.
let you nowadays.
Yeah, I don't think they really want you to now, especially not in college or like the high school games. You could do it, but you don't want to do it now because you don't need to.
Wow. So you would do the same thing, high ISO, fastest shutter speed you can possibly
yeah,
have.
640, 500 at 2.8, something
Okay.
like that. So
Now, speaking of like, can you use flash, do you need to ask permission in general when you're at an event, or do you just show up and, I'm the news reporter, photographer?
usually they know we're coming.
So somebody, who contacts them, the newspaper, or?
The reporters sometimes, or we will, like all the professional sports and the college sports have like PR people that you can contact. The sports information director at universities handles giving credentials for like FGCU basketball, or like you could probably just show up to the soccer game at FGCU and get in, but like for stuff that you need a seat to, that's a little more crowded, you'd need the sports information director's approval to go. And for high school, you definitely want to let the athletic director know that you're coming. I know some parents with cameras come, but the coach knows them and knows that they'll be there, or the athletic director. So
No,
they're not just going to let anybody onto the field, especially
So do they
now
let you
with
into the
security.
field, or
They d-
special?
yeah,
you have
on the
special
field.
places you can go because you're the news.
Yeah, I have my little badge that I wear with my photo on it, so they know that I'm who I say I am.
Yeah, you're legit. She's legit.
Legit.
Now, do any of the parents ever get in your way?
No,
No,
they're
'cause
all really good. They know what they're doing, and
they're,
there's enough
if you're-
sideline for everybody. There's
Okay.
not that many people there. And
That's
when
always a problem with us at weddings, you know.
yeah,
With
yes,
everybody
that
with their
is-
phones and their iPads lifting up. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, most of the parents have similar equipment to me, so they know what they're doing.
That's
There's an
nice.
intricate dance that you have to do on the sideline. You know, you're courteous and you walk behind them if you're moving position because you want to stay ahead of the action, you know.
And so that's that. So it is really important to know the sport, right?
Yeah,
And I mean, you knew a little bit about sports, right?
I did, yeah.
But did you learn more, or did you do any like cramming before each job or anything like that? Or
Sometimes, especially when I was younger, to learn more about the stuff. But I had a fairly good understanding of football and baseball and
they have to go that
all the
way?
basic sports, you know.
Yeah, because for
I still
me,
get sometimes caught like, oh, it's the end of the quarter and we have to switch sides now, and so
Yeah, because I'm not into sports at all, and I wouldn't know. I mean, I went with my dad, and he was telling me what was going on with Richard at the time with the lacrosse, because I'm like,
yeah, lacrosse would be harder because you don't watch that on TV
I've
very
never
often.
even seen it. That was the
mean,
only time in my whole life I had ever
Yeah.
gone to it, and I meant to go to more because I was trying to be a good aunt, but I wasn't.
Yeah, it happens. Life happens. But.
Now,
Yeah.
so how do you know where to stand? Is that because you know the sport?
Yes, like at basketball, you're pretty much in the, like behind the baskets, or you know, in the end zone, if you will.
Okay.
The goal line, whatever you call it.
I don't know.
Yeah, everybody kind of sits in a line, you know, near the cheerleaders at the end.
I thought the cheerleaders were on the sides, no? No, they're on the ends.
They're on the ends.
Okay.
And there's usually a media table there too, so you're kind of right in front of the media table.
Is
and,
it hard to get around? I mean, do you have
at
to like crouch
FGCU,
down?
it's
or?
not hard. You're sitting.
Oh,
For the
they
most
give you a
part.
chair.
Yeah, you know, you don't get a chair. You're on the floor, like you're sitting
Oh.
on the floor. It can be hard on your back. So a lot of them a lot of photographers take the camping chairs with the back to it, and you just sit
yeah.
right on the floor, and you can tighten it down.
Yeah, because how long do you have to stay for the whole game?
You don't have to. A lot of us are on deadline, so depending on what time the game is, you might have to shoot until the first time out and then run back and send your photos, and then you can come back in and kind of shoot the rest of the game for whatever else you need. But yeah, so in basketball, you're generally there, but it's sometimes good to get up and go to the top of the stands to get a different vantage point, or
Is
get
there
a
a
little
good time
higher.
to go? I mean, will you miss something if you say, "Oh, I'm going to go wander around"? And
You
try
want to wander during the timeout so you can get into position.
Okay.
There's always TV timeouts and regular timeouts, so you know if it's going to be a 30-second timeout or a commercial break timeout, which is 2 or 3 minutes or whatever.
So yeah, I didn't know that.
You know that's the best time to wander, or you wait until you know you've got some good shots down on the floor from the traditional angle, and then you're like, okay, well I've got this, so now I can kind of maybe have a little more fun, play around with my angles. A lot of photographers will mount cameras to the backboard, the top of the backboard, so they can get it when people come up to dunk. And
Well, how do you
That's
mount a
kinda fun.
camera to the top of the back?
they have brackets that you can
Like a
mount.
real camera, like a
Yeah,
DSLR
yeah,
camera?
mhm. They have brackets.
And
to
how do you
mount
shoot
them,
from
and-
there? Just from a remote trigger?
Yeah, you have a remote trigger.
Wow.
Yeah, and someone
So
will
they
have
just
a
have it in burst, and then they see somebody coming, and they go.
yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and some will have a remote camera on the floor beside of them too, with a wide-angle lens, and
to get the
yeah,
whole.
to get the whole.
But from the
thing.
feet view.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That'd be a pretty cool view.
yeah. There's sometimes people dive on the floor for the ball and stuff like that. So
Now, do you have like certain shots that you think are really cool to get, like from low, or are you just sort of whatever?
just whatever. I try to just get a good moment
Yeah.
that tells the story of the game. If somebody's losing really bad, you want to get them sad.
Yeah.
And if they're winning, you want to get them like really excited. So you have to pay attention to the game too, and know kind of what might happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, are there areas like you're not allowed? Do they give you the rules when you get there? Or?
Sometimes they'll give you rules. Sometimes you just find that out the hard
when
way.
you did something wrong.
One time I went behind the goal at a soccer game, and they were like, "No, you can't be there." And then, like, for tennis, sometimes they get a little weird about if you stand up in the stands because the tennis players can get distracted, or
Okay.
you know, so that kind of stuff you kind of have to feel out or just get called out. And with football, you have to be careful. You have to stand behind. They usually have a line painted that you have to stand behind, and then, but you also want to make sure that if they're running toward you, you might want to back up a little bit.
You don't want to
because
get hit by a
you don't want to
football
get
player.
run over by a football player.
Oh,
so
man,
you
that
really
would
have to
hurt.
pay attention. Yeah. So if you're just checking your pictures,
Have you ever seen anybody get hit by a football player?
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Was it a photographer? Or
yeah, photographer. Yeah.
Wow.
I've been hit a couple, like maybe once or twice, but I was able to, I knew he was coming, but I didn't have time to back up, so I just kind of put my shoulder out, and he just kind of knocked me back a little bit. I didn't fall or break anything.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I've seen photographers at Bucks games, Tampa Bay Bucks, just get laid out, and no picture is that important to me.
No way. I would never want to get hit by a football player.
No. I got landed on by a couple basketball players in college because you're right there and you can't move out of the way.
Because there's not enough room,
There's a
right?
table or cheerleaders
Yeah.
or fans behind you, so there you just kind of have to
And they're big
catch
guys
them.
too.
Yeah, I caught one and like, hi.
Oh
He's,
my
big.
gosh. That's so funny. I never would have thought about that it'd be dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be a dangerous
Yeah.
job. Yeah.
So now, if you're working outside, do you have, like, say you're doing golf, do you position yourself in one place, or do you follow the golfers around, or how does that?
It kind of depends on the day and what the reporters want the story to be or what you think the story should be.
Okay.
Like one time I covered the U.S. Open, and I followed Tiger Woods through his entire round because that's what they wanted, and it was an early round. When you get to the final round, you probably want to stick with the winner, either all the way or, you know, sometimes the second place person could jump ahead of the winner. So you have to be paying attention to the leaderboard.
So do you have like a cart that you get around?
No.
On? So you got to walk with
You
all
have to
that heavy.
walk. Yeah.
You know, I photographed a couple of years, but I lost this job too. Anyway, I used to do the events for the high-end events for one of the banks in town, and they would let the ladies. They would have a luncheon for the ladies at the LPGA here in, where was it? Tiburon?
Tiburon, probably.
I think.
Yeah.
And there was a guy, I saw him every year, and he had so much gear hanging off of him. I thought, how does he even stand up? I have a picture of it somewhere. I don't know if I can find it though. But oh my gosh, he had like big heavy lenses hanging off him, and some cameras hanging off of his shoulders. And you're right, he was walking.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This year at the golf tournament, I got lucky and I got 2 rides from like volunteers. They were like, "Hey, you need a ride?" But I had never gotten a ride at Tiburon before.
A lot of walking
never.
with a lot of heavy gear.
Yeah, one year I was about 7 months pregnant. No rides.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it was
and
a lot
was
of
it
walking.
hot or was it in the winter?
It was in December.
Okay,
So it
that
was
wasn't
like
too
okay. It wasn't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This guy had like a 600mm lens. I mean, he had all that gear.
Yeah, I looked at 500 2.8 through the U.S. Open in 2005, and I had a bruise on my shoulder from the monopod.
Oh my gosh.
Which is another reason I like the 100 to 400. It's not that
That's
much
heavy.
bigger than the 70 to 200, and yeah.
Wow.
It's easier to walk with.
Now, do you think about the sun when you're there? I mean, are you sometimes just stuck shooting into the sun? What do you do in that case?
Sometimes you're just
because you're not using flash, so you
Yeah,
can't do
you
anything
can't.
about that. What do you
No.
do if you have to shoot into the sun?
Well, you either make it a silhouette. Sometimes
Okay.
that can be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you just let the background
Blow
blow
out.
out.
So you,
you know.
or maybe zoom in closer.
Yeah. Yeah, you
try
usually
to
want
try
be
to get the
zoomed in,
sun
yeah.
out of the shot.
Yeah, so because sometimes you're stuck. There's only certain places, especially on the golf course, that you can actually go. You have to be within an arm's length of the rope. You can be inside the rope, but you have to still stick close to it. And there's just
Okay.
some, like you can't just wander out into the middle of the green. That's
Right.
That's not cool.
Wow. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Now,
And you never, ever, 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 ever shoot in a golfer's backswing. You have to wait until after they hit the ball. Like here, no.
Oh.
After they hit the ball,
because you might
yes.
click or something and
Yeah.
annoy them.
Yeah.
Ah.
The caddies and the golfers will get really mad
They'll
at
call
you.
me
They will
after you.
call you out like right then and there. So.
Wow. Now, okay, so you're carrying all this gear at the golfing. Are you carrying all your gear around for
Yeah.
everything? You never leave it laying somewhere or set it under a table or?
Not usually. Sometimes you can do that, but I generally not.
So you got to carry all that heavy gear. Photography is not for weak people, especially your
No.
type of photography. Holy cow.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be prepared for everything.
Now going back to the sun, like for a golf, are you using like a CPL filter or anything like that? No filters?
I have UV filters on the front of my lenses just because I don't use lens caps, so it just protects the glass. Basically just a protection.
But you're not doing anything for the glare?
Mm-mm.
No, okay.
You
What
could if you wanted to. Just for journalism, they typically don't want you to change too much of the situation. Like you want it to be true to
Okay.
how it is.
All right, so give us some tips for capturing action. Like how do you really make things stand out? Like, you know, I mean, you have a lot of pressure as a photojournalist because if you take the same old pictures, you're not going to keep your job very long, right? Because anybody can take the same old pictures. So what do you do to try to make your photography stand out?
Well, you want to look for, like I said, storytelling moments from the game.
Okay.
Don't stop shooting when the whistle blows, when the play stops. Like you need to keep your camera trained on the players, you know, because they could have an awesome reaction. A lot of times in football, they'll run up and do, you know, a chest bump. That's always fun, you know. So don't stop when the play stops.
Okay. Don't put that camera down.
Yeah, don't put it down until
Your arm is going to break off.
You can put it down every once in a while.
Do you use a monopod? a lot of the
If
time,
I'm
or-
using like the 300 2.8 or the 400 2.8 or
You
the
do, 'cause
600,
this
I
thing's
do.
so heavy.
But I can hold the 100 to 400
Okay.
pretty well. If you have kind of trouble holding steady, definitely use a monopod. But yeah, so keep your camera trained on the athletes until after they've done their cheering. And
That's really good advice.
you know, and like in football, if a player's helmet gets ripped off, you know, his face might have an interesting.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
get tight on the shoot tight and crop tighter. You know, get right in on the faces because, you know, the helmet obstructs a lot of the face, but the eyes almost always pop.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, sometimes you can get the faces, and if their helmet gets ripped off, you know, you get special things. And
Now, do you
yeah,
shoot with
so-
just one camera at a time?
I have two.
Do you keep
On me
like
all
one
the
on
time,
each
one on
hat-
each shoulder.
Shoulder?
Yeah.
You got good shoulders like me.
yeah. Yeah, they hold the camera pretty well.
It was funny because when I first started working with Joe and he was talking about camera straps, in fact, we have a video on YouTube about Joe's favorite camera strap. But I was like, I don't get why people spend all this money on straps. Because not everybody has shoulders like yours. Mine just goes straight out, man. Nothing ever slips off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. So, all right. So you're using two cameras. Do you keep like a wide lens on one and a zoom lens? Or like
Yeah, I have like a
long-
24 to 70 on one, and then either the 70 to 200 or.
Just like wedding photography. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I use.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore. I shouldn't say that. Now I have a 70 to 300 f4 because it doesn't weigh as much, and I'm,
Yeah.
I'm getting older.
That's good, yeah. It gives you a little more zoom, too.
A little more zoom, a little less weight. So you know.
Yeah.
All right. So you got two cameras because I was just thinking, like in football, you know, they go for the huddle, and I was thinking that they might have some cool faces in there, like when they but you need the big shot, the wide shot as well, right?
Yeah.
So how, do you have like a ratio in general, or do you just sort of like how many wide shots to close-ups to medium?
I just kind of
You just want to make
feel
sure
it. I don't know. You kind of have to practice, and and if you have a 400 2.8 that's fixed, you're going to have to be able to throw. If you're sitting down, you're going to have to be able to throw that thing aside and whip up your wide angle if they're coming to catch a pass in the end zone. You just throw one down and pick the other one up really quick.
You don't throw it, do you?
No, I mean, you let it fall. It's grass, so it won't hurt it.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have to pay for it anyway.
I take very good care of the gear that is given to me.
Yeah,
I have
good.
very little repairs.
That's good.
So yeah.
That's good. What else? What else? Anything else that you can think of to tell me about sports in general? You got any good stories?
Oh, I don't know.
You told me one about getting
Super Bowl. Yeah, I got hit.
You covered the Super Bowl?
I covered the Super Bowl once.
Where was it?
In Miami.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the Saints, and I'm trying to remember who they were playing. But anyway, yeah, it was the Super Bowl. So that was kind of fun. I didn't get a spot on the field.
Okay.
Funny thing about the Super Bowl is so many photographers want to be there. They don't have enough field passes for everybody.
Okay.
So I actually got a seat in the front row of the stands in the end zone.
Okay.
Which was kind of cool because I just used my long lens almost the whole time. And so and luckily when the Saints scored their last touchdown, he was running toward me. So I got him running into the end zone.
Oh
so
my
that was
God,
cool. And
that's
then
awesome.
yeah, and then also because I was on deadline, I was able to have my laptop on my lap.
Because you had a seat.
Right there with me. I had a seat. So, I had everything kind of right there with me, and I didn't have to. So it's kind of a blessing not to have to move around on that one because the sidelines get so crowded, and I'm a little person.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can duck between two huge guys, but sometimes they just come right in front of you. And, so it's kind of nice to have my own space.
That's one thing that I've never really done photojournalism as far as like that type of stuff and paparazzi type of stuff almost.
Yeah.
And we have a big event here every year, the Naples Winter Wine Festival, and I worked at one time and I was like, ooh, I don't like this because you had to basically elbow all the other photographers out of your way to get the shot, and
it's hard.
I didn't like that. I was really uncomfortable, but you can do it. You do it, right?
I do it.
You have to do it sometimes,
you
right?
have to be
What kind of events
sometimes.
are there? Like a lot of photographers that you have to do that kind of stuff. Is it all sports, or are they just celebrity
sports,
stuff?
politics,
Oh.
concerts.
Yeah.
Celebrity stuff. Yeah. Just anywhere where there's tight quarters, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Now, you probably, since you've been doing this for this area for a long time, you probably know all the other photographers in town, though, right? As far as
most of them. Sometimes
newspaper
out-of-town
ones.
photographers will come in.
Okay.
And now, like at the City of Palms basketball tournament, it's a high school tournament that teams come in from all over the country. So there's not a ton of still photographers besides us there, but there's a lot of videographers, a lot of websites, like recruiting websites, and they'll sometimes they're kids, high school kids who have made their own, or sometimes they'll hire high school kids. So there's just a bunch of high school kids with these tiny little video cameras on the sideline or with their phone. So it's kind of hard to fight for space with them.
Oh, yeah. Too. Yeah.
It's kind of how times are changing.
Yeah, that's like the wedding stuff. The wedding photography, first it was everybody had a DSLR, and they never turned the beep off, so you'd be sitting there in a church hearing beep, 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 while they're focusing. And then of course the priest would look at you and like, stop beeping. It's not me, my beep is turned off,
Yeah.
And then now it's the cell phones, and it's funny, the cell phones are worse because everybody has one. Yeah. And the problem most of the time is they lean into the aisle. So they're in your way, and then you have to stand in people's way because otherwise you won't get the shots. I hate that. People need to be considerate of others, right?
Right.
So.
And you're hired to do this.
Yeah.
Take a break from your cell phone.
I agree.
They've paid a lot of good money to have this photographer document their day.
Never enough.
Never enough. But yeah.
All right, what else? How do you get a job as a newspaper photographer? I mean, you went to college for journalism.
For journalism,
For
yeah.
journalism, not photography.
Well, it's a journalism degree with a concentration in photojournalism.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, yeah, the journalism department, it was actually visual communication concentration with photojournalism. So it was like a subspecialty within a subspecialty within a subspecialty.
Okay, but
so
that really helps you get your first job.
that
probably.
did, yeah. I got an internship right out of college. I had met an editor at a conference, at a photo conference, and so I contacted him when I was close to graduating. He gave me an internship down here, and then they hired me full-time for a little bit more money. And then 2.5 years later, I got the job at the News Press. So that's the kind of typical route. Now, we had a photographer that worked with us a few years ago who just kind of started photography late in life and was a great photographer. Probably because she's just a great person, so she had a lot of empathy, so that's what a great documentary photographer has is, great personality. You get people to trust you, stuff like that. So she just kind of stumbled into, I think she did freelance for a while, and then she worked for another paper, and then she got a job with us.
Okay. What kind of photo conference did you go to that you met somebody?
This one was called the Visual Edge Conference. They don't do it anymore, but it's put on by the National Press Photographers Association.
Oh, so there's a National Press Photographers Association.
Yeah, so and they put on conferences every year. They have the Women in Photojournalism Conference, and then they have some
And anybody can go,
too.
or you have to belong to the club?
You have
the
to,
group, the association?
non-members can go too. You just pay a little
more.
bit more. And usually they have speakers at a hotel, conference room, or conference
Right.
center somewhere. And I highly recommend going to these because they're so inspiring. I went to the Atlanta Photojournalism Conference last year. Just saw some great speakers and people who had been photographing in India and Africa. There's a woman who did a project on people living on less than $1 a day, and I was weeping from the photos that she showed.
Wow.
It's really inspiring.
That's awesome. That is awesome. You know what? You brought up such a good point, though, because I just wrote a blog article. I have an Airbnb guest staying with me who's really into photography, and we were just kind of chit-chatting last night, and he inspired me to write this blog article about setting goals. And one of the things I said is, take a class, or, you might think you know everything, but you don't.
Right.
You just don't. Because not that he said that, not at all. He's actually a guy who he's hired somebody, not me, hired somebody else to take him around while he was here, which of course I didn't care for. Yeah. But I found out why, and I thought it was interesting because he stopped by, and because nobody was here, he thought we were closed down.
Oh.
So that's why I put the business cards on the outside of my door, because it's like, okay, look, I just don't work here. I work at home,
Yeah. This is the studio space.
So he's into learning. But I thought, conferences, and a little plug, we've got the Florida Camera Club Conference is coming up in March 2019. Joe Fitzpatrick is the president of the Florida Club. Wait, I just said it. Florida Camera Club Council. It's hard to say.
It's a lot of C's.
The website is f3c.org. So that's a really good conference. It's right in Fort Myers. You should cover it.
Yeah.
It's March something, I don't know.
Yeah.
8th, 9th, and 10th.
8th, 9th, and 10th. Joe's the president. He knows the dates.
Yeah.
So it's right at FGCU. They do it during spring break,
Oh.
which is so nice
Yeah.
because it's a great facility and it's a very, very nice conference. So it's always good to get, as much education and inspiration sometimes. It's just
Yes.
inspiration that you see something and you're like, oh, what can I think of to do, now that I've seen this person who brought you to tears or whatever.
Yeah, it was just really re-energizing. I mean, I've been in this job for a lot of years, so I was getting a little bit in a rut with my shooting, and it was nice to go there and just see all these great people and what they're doing and the things they've accomplished. And
Now, is there a sports photojournalism or sports photographers association, or?
there might be. I
don't
know
know.
there's a website called Sports Shooter, and a lot of people post on that, host portfolios and get critiques and stuff like that. So sportsshooter.com, you could look there. I'm sure they have.
Yeah, because I'm thinking,
Their
how do
own
you
association,
get
but-
better at, if you're specifically into sports? How do you just keep improving on just the sports? I would think you'd need to surround yourself with other sports photographers, because it is a
Yeah.
very unique type of photography.
It is, and it's also really important in sports to maybe not go with the crowd. You know, when you're beginning, yeah, stay with the crowd, see what they're shooting, you know,
Okay.
kind of try to emulate, but then step back, go somewhere else, like take a chance. You know, it's kind of risk versus reward, but like maybe they throw an interception and you're in the right end zone and everybody else is at the other end. You're going to get a great shot.
Now, what if you're at the wrong
Or
end?
then you didn't get
just
the
missed
shot.
the
You just missed it, but you know.
Does that happen often?
Oh yeah.
Too often?
I've
So-
missed it before.
And have you ever missed like the best shot ever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Like, do they get down on you if you do? Like, oh my God, the winning goal and you didn't even get it.
I get down on myself probably more than they do. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure they're like, oh, whoa. But you know, that's why you try to get a shot of somebody celebrating. So even if you didn't get the game-winning goal, you've got a celebration shot to show, you know, the thrill
Okay.
of victory that they won.
Yeah, Joe has a picture
So-
that is really good. It's a baseball picture, and it's, you know, they're all, I think they're actually are they picking the guy up? But they're all the baseball players around this guy. He obviously did something really good, probably.
Yeah,
you know,
you probably hit
the
the game-winning
Yeah,
home run
yeah.
or something. Yeah.
And so it's like you feel all this emotion, but then just a little off to the side, there's a guy literally jumping for joy.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool picture, you
Yeah.
know? It's like you said, it's capturing that emotion and the decisive moment, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You just have to keep your camera up and never put it down. You have to strong arms.
Mostly, yeah, strong arms.
And just be paying
Brace yourself
attention.
on your hip bones. You know?
I don't think my elbows
Or
reach
you
my
know,
hip
your
bones.
ribs. I have a very short waist, so my hip bones work well for
I was
me.
gonna say,
but
that's not going to work for me.
you know, but
Left
you know,
hand
create
underneath,
a
right?
Yeah,
That's my big peeve.
yeah.
I'm so annoying to my poor students.
Yeah.
Left hand underneath. I worked a wedding.
No chicken wings.
I worked a wedding on Saturday, and there were 3 of my students were there, and they were like left hand underneath. They were just guests at the wedding, but I had my
funny.
left hand underneath. They didn't need to correct me, but boy, you'll get steadier shots that way, right?
Yeah.
And what did you call this? With your
Chick-
elbow
no
up?
chicken wing.
No chicken wing with the elbow up. I love. Oh wait, it would
Yeah.
be this arm.
Yeah,
right?
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be the left arm. So that's interesting. But yeah, because I mean, you need steady shots when you're a. Now, have you ever had you felt like your shutter speed was fast enough, but your pictures were still not as sharp as you'd like? I wonder if is that you, or is that the lens slipping, or the camera not good enough?
Sometimes it can be a combination of
I'm
all
just
the
curious
things,
because
like-
that's been happening to me lately.
Yeah.
In fact, I
Maybe your
was
shutter
just
speed actually isn't fast enough, or maybe your lens needs a tune-up.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
not
I'm wondering.
locking in focus.
I'm wondering because I've been maybe what am I doing? I had a still shot of just a couple people. They weren't even moving, and my shutter speed was 160th of a second, and it looked like a little bit of soft from motion blur
yeah,
though, and I thought 160th of a second should have been fast enough. So I'm gonna I
Yeah.
gotta figure that out. You don't know
It
either.
could
I don't
be.
know.
I don't know.
I have
mean,
no
it could be
idea.
just that you moved and
I
didn't
moved too
even
much,
realize
yeah.
it. Or
But that
the
is
lens
one
was
of the-
heavy and I don't know.
I think it was my 24 to 70. That's not that
I,
heavy.
sometimes it happens. And
Yeah, I'm just-
sometimes I get distracted when I'm shooting like family portraits and the light's going down and I'm not realizing that
yeah.
the shutter speed is getting slower and slower, and then I get back and I'm like, oh, that was, yeah.
That's why I don't like to shoot in aperture priority, because
Yeah, it'll bite you sometimes.
So many people have such problems with blurry pictures because their shutters go too slow and they just aren't paying enough attention. In fact, most of the time when people nowadays, I think, when they have blurry pictures, it's usually the shutter speed is just too slow. And in sports, that's so much more important. What's the hardest sport to capture?
Oh, to me, it's baseball.
Why is baseball?
Because there's a lot of just waiting.
So
and
you're bored.
You're bored. And so you're ready. You got the camera up, and then like you just have to take a breath, and then somebody steals second base, and that's the shot that you've been waiting for the whole time, and then you miss it. Or there's a pop fly, and you're focused on second base, but you need to be on center field. So baseball is just so spread out. You never quite know where. It's not as predictable. You don't know where the action's going to be. It could be anywhere at any time. I mean, maybe if you know the game a little bit better, you might have a better idea of what's going to happen. But in general, like, you never know when the guy's going to hit a home run.
Yeah, no way.
So, and like with football, generally the quarterback gets the ball. They either pass it or hand it off to somebody. You can follow the guy with the ball, and they're all kind of bunched up. Basketball, too. It's really fast moving. But, you can follow the ball pretty well. It's a fairly contained area. Baseball is just kind of.
What about hockey? Do you ever cover hockey?
Hockey's hard.
Because hockey, that puck goes flying so fast.
It's really fast, and it's really tiny. So it's harder to follow that, too. It's easier to miss it. I like to shoot hockey from above if I can. It's easier to see who's got the puck, because
But then you can't get the faces and all that stuff.
Yeah, the faces are harder. So what I'll do usually with hockey is I'll go down on the floor for maybe the first period, and then go up.
Go up to the nosebleed section.
To the top.
And you pretty much have free reign.
Pretty much. Especially, I mean, at professional sports, you have much less free reign. At the Everblades, you can pretty much be anywhere in there as long as you're not in somebody's seat, and you'll be okay. And like when you shoot football at the University of Florida, at least when I did at my former job, you had to be on your knees the whole game.
Ooh.
It was rough on the knees. Like you want to bring an inflatable pad to put under your knees.
Do they have little inflatable pads?
They do, like camp or like stadium seats or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning here.
Nice. Yeah. Or a lot of photographers just wear knee pads.
So they're wandering around.
Not care about fashion.
But. Yeah. I know.
They're just wearing knee pads because not all football stadiums are like that. That's the only place that I've ever had to be down the whole time. But that was hard.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to get out of the way if somebody's coming
at you. If you're down, if you're down already.
Yeah. You gotta.
Maybe it just huddle.
You gotta dive or huddle.
So you don't break your neck.
Hope they can just jump over you.
Now, do you have a favorite sport? Gymnastics.
Gymnastics. Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I love to watch gymnastics, and I don't really like sports too much, but I love to watch gymnastics. And nowadays, I can't believe the power of these gymnasts.
Yeah, and there's so much more on TV now. It's really nice. During the NCAA season, it's on TV every Friday night.
Really? Mm-hmm. Now, but you don't get to photograph that very often because we just don't have anything going on in this area?
No, there was a meet in Orlando. Like it was the elite level gymnasts who came to Orlando, and I covered that. It was the American Cup, probably in 2002 or 1 maybe. So that was fun.
I would like that too.
Emailed them and got the credential myself. And
do you ever do anything creative, like blur things on purpose? Like I'm just thinking of somebody doing a bunch of flips and having it blurry. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll do that sometimes. Once I know I've got what I need, then I can go and experiment.
Do they ever publish things like that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes?
Yeah.
Do they like it, or do they? Sometimes.
I
knew you were going to say it.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's really bad. So, but you know, you have to be willing to try new things.
I know, I have a lot of bad shots for me because I have brilliant ideas, I think. And then I go to take the brilliant idea and it doesn't really come out that good.
Yeah, the execution, yeah. It happens to everybody, I think, all photographers.
Well, you
like,
should
oh,
be taking
this would
risks.
be really cool, and no.
I know. All right, any other advice on sports photography?
I don't think so.
We covered a lot. I think we did a really good job.
Yeah.
Okay, where can our audience find you?
Well, my work is regularly published in the news press, so news-press.com.
News-press.com.
Yes, and on Instagram, I'm at Inscore, Inscore. But you will mostly see photos of my children on that.
Because they're the cutest subjects you have.
Yeah. And the News Press has an Instagram account too. It's just at the News Press.
The News Press. Though.
Yeah. And there's at News Press Sports also.
Oh.
And they're doing a lot with high school sports, and our sports editor mostly handles that. But every game I do, I'll send him photos. And
you don't have to actually do that though. You submit them to
I'll submit them to him, but I put a lot on the News Press Instagram account. Yeah.
Okay, so we can see more the variety of your work, not just the sports.
Yeah, and all the other News Press photographers too. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
Yay. Join us next week for episode 118 with Chris Smith. We're going to be talking about sparking your creativity. I'm Peggy Farren. Thanks so much for watching the Understand Photography Show. Remember, our show notes will be on understandphotography.com.
Get up!